Good morning, Team Takatatu, and welcome to the center of the aerospace testing universe for the 412th Test Wing Change of Command ceremony, at which Brigadier General Matthew W. Higer will relinquish command to Colonel Douglas P. Wickert. Our presiding official of today's ceremony is Major General Evan C. Durteen, the Commander, Air Force Test Center. I am Technical Sergeant Derek Day, and I am honored to serve as your MC for today's ceremony. Today's ceremony is considered an outdoor ceremony. All military personnel will remain covered and are reminded to render salutes during the singing of our national anthem. We invite our civilian guests to participate by standing during the appropriate honors and placing your hand over your heart during the national anthem. Quiet hours have not been requested. There will be sounds of flight line activities and possibly a sonic boom. Before we start today's activities, we would like to take this opportunity to recognize some special and distinguished guests that are in attendance. Please hold your applause until everyone has been introduced. Our presiding official's wife, Mrs. Erica Durteen. Colonel Wickert's wife, Mrs. Jody Wickert. Their son, Cole, and daughter, Cora. Attending virtually is their daughter, Charlotte. And his parents, Colonel Roger Wickert, United States Air Force retired, and Mrs. Nancy Wickert. We also welcome Brigadier General Higer's wife, Lieutenant Colonel Leslie Higer, United States Air Force retired. Their son Zev, daughter Alex, and fur babies Sky and Sassy. His father, the Honorable Nathan Higer, and his wife, Mrs. Kay Higer. His brother, David Higer, Esquire. His mother-in-law, Ms. Barbara Carter. And with us in spirit, his mother, Mrs. Beth Hemmer, and his father-in-law, Mr. Barry Carter. Also in attendance, representing California's 27th Congressional District, Congressman Mike Garcia. From the Office of the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, District Representative Mr. Jake Lopez. From the Office of State Senator Scott Wilk, Field Representative Mr. Jack Danielson. From the Office of State Senator Shannon Grove, Field Representative Mr. Dominic Hayden. From the Office of Assemblyman Juan Carrillo, Field Representative Mr. Juan Blanco. From the Office of Assemblyman Tom Lackey, Field Representative Ms. Anna Zarley. From the Office of Los Angeles County Supervisor Catherine Barger, 5th District, Assistant Field Deputy Mr. Charles Boswick. Representing the City of Lancaster, Councilman Raj Mali. And representing the City of Palmdale, Councilman Eric Olson. From the 412th Test Wing, representing the 412th Test Wing in the ceremony today as Commander of Airmen is our Deputy Commander, Colonel Matthew Caspers. In the audience is his wife, Mrs. Sally Caspers. Mr. Daniel Osborne, Senior Technical Director, and his wife, Mrs. Kathy Osborne. Colonel Christopher Manning, Mobilization Assistant to the Commander. And representing the 412th Test Wing in the ceremony today as the guidon bearer is our Command Chief Master Sergeant, Chief Master Sergeant Justin Stoltzfus. In the audience is his wife, Mrs. Jessica Stoltzfus. From the Air Force Test Center, Dr. Eileen Bjorkman, Executive Director. Mr. John Grigalunas, Technical Director. Colonel Grant Mizell, Deputy Commander, and his wife, Mrs. Evelyn Mizell. From the Naval Air Warfare Center, Weapons Division, Rear Admiral Keith Hash, Commander, and his wife, Mrs. Misha Hash. From Eglin Air Force Base, Brigadier General Jeffrey Garrity, Commander, 96th Test Wing. Colonel Daniel Lahosky, Commander, 53rd Wing. From Arnold Engineering and Development Complex, Colonel Randall Gordon, Commander, and his wife, Mrs. Tiffany Gordon. Dr. Tom Fetterhoff, Technical Advisor for Aerodynamics, Propulsion, Ground Test, and Evaluation. From the NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center, Mr. Glenn Graham, Director, Safety and Mission Assurance, and his wife, Mrs. Allison Graham. Mr. Troy Asher, Director of Flight Operations. Then from the members of our community leaders, the Air Force Material Command Community Liaison Program, the Edwards Air Force Base Civilian Military Support Group, the Air Force Association's William J. Pete Knight, Chapter 294, and the Flight Test Historical Foundation. We are grateful that many other current and former senior leaders, state and community leaders, colleagues, friends, and co-workers have come to join us today. We welcome you all. Team Takatatu, please join us in a round of applause for all of our distinguished guests. Team Takatatu, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the presentation of the colors, the singing of our national anthem by Ms. Rachel Bradshaw, and the invocation by Chaplain Heather Bodwell.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that a flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Let us take a moment of silence to remember all of our civilian and military members who are deployed around the world, most especially those in harm's way. In accordance with your faith tradition, I invite you to join me in prayer. Let us pray. Gracious God, on this day, we recognize the true gifts of leadership. We thank you for the leadership of Brigadier General Matthew W. Higer and the direction, guidance, innovation, and a servant's heart with which he has provided the 4th 12th Test Wing. Team Tukatatu, deliver him and his wife Leslie, their children Zev and Alex, and fur babies Sky and Sassy safely to their new home in Nevada. May you give him the wisdom, strength, and courage in assuming his next adventure. Remind him, O God, that he has done well as your good and faithful servant. We thank you for the safe arrival of our new commander, Colonel Douglas P. Wickert, his wife Jody, and their children Charlotte, joining us virtually, Cole and Cora. We ask that you give Commander Colonel Wickert the wisdom, strength, and courage to provide the leadership necessary for the military and civilian members of the 412th Test Wing. be his constant source of support and inspiration in the days, weeks, and months to come. To continue to guide and protect Team Takatatu. Bless also the leadership of the Commander, Air Force Test Center, and today's presiding official, Major General Dirt Team, those wearing the mantle of civilian and military leadership, and our Commander-in-Chief. Thank you for both leaders' families and friends whose support and love sustains them. Bless the camaraderie of the ceremony and the fellowship during the reception. We pray these things in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you to the Blue Eagles Honor Guard, Ms. Bradshaw and Chaplain Bodwell. Team Takatatu, please be seated. It is my great pleasure to introduce the Commander, Air Force Test Center, Major General Evan C. Durteen.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here in iconic Hangar 1600. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedules, and also like to welcome those that are joining us virtually that could not attend here in person today. In a few moments, we'll transfer the guidon and bid farewell for Brigadier General Matthew C. Higer, and we will welcome Colonel Doug Beaker Wickert to the 412th Test Wing family. But today we also have the opportunity to celebrate the history and achievements of this amazing organization that has a legacy of delivering leading-edge aviation and warfighting capabilities to the warfighter. Nearly 90 years ago, a visionary aviation pioneer, General Henry Hap Arnold, was a lieutenant colonel, and he was serving as the commander of March Field down in Riverside, California. And he saw the potential of this location when he saw the lake bed and the remote isolation and set up a bombing range here. And the history of Edwards Air Force Base, back then known as Muroc Airfield, was started supporting bomber units. During the dawn of the jet age, in the early 1940s, Edwards was selected to test prototype aircraft in secrecy. The success of these programs and the attributes of Edwards Air Force Base, including the lake bed runways, the surface, the sunny weather, and the remoteness, and the plentiful airspace, set a foundation for Edwards becoming the center of the aerospace test universe. The 412 Test Wing's legacy also traces back to that time in the 40s. In 1943, the 412 Fighter Group, the first U.S. jet fighter group, first U.S. jet fighter organization, was based here at Edwards Air Force Base. They were initially tasked to advance P-59s and the P-80 jet aircraft. And while the organizations that have operated this location have evolved over the time, including the birth of the Air Force, the team at Edwards Air Force Base has their fingerprints on almost every fighter, bomber, tanker, transport, and unmanned aircraft our Air Force has deployed since World War II. Today, the 412 Test Wing operates two of our nation's most important military installations, both Edwards Air Force Base and Plant 42, and continues to be on the leading edge of ensuring our warfighters are best postured to maximize the capabilities across air, space, and cyber, and integrate with our joint partners. So before I go too far, I just want to welcome some of our special guests. First of all, to the family of the Higers and the Wickerts, thank you so much for attending today. It's great to have you here in person, and I know some of the family members are joining us virtually, so thanks to everyone for coming out. Congressman Garcia, we truly appreciate your support for the military, and to all our elected officials, community leaders, and distinguished guests from the community. We could not execute this mission without the support of the community around our bases. So thank you so much for being here and the continuing support you have. For Admiral Hash, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate the partnership. For those of you who don't know, Admiral Hash is the commander of China Lake and the Western Test Ranges, and is also leading Navy test efforts. And there's a great partnership right now between the Air Force and Navy advancing our capabilities. And also to our partners here from NASA, who are a great mission partner and are also helping us push the envelope in aviation. Also to all the commanders, directors, and chiefs, and especially to the men and women of the 412th Test Wing, thanks for joining us. And as recognized before, I'd also like to give a special thanks to the Blue Eagles Honor Guard, Miss Rachel Bradshaw, and all the team behind the scenes that made this happen, the organizers, the protocol team, multimedia, the MC, and many more. Let's give them a round of applause. So a little over 3.5 years ago, General Higer took command of the 412 Test Wing and accepted the guidon. But we had no idea of the challenge that would lie ahead for his assignment. A global pandemic, social and political unrest, increased mission demand across the Air Force Test Center, just to name a few. But less than a month after him accepting the guidon, a pandemic spread around the world and impacted every facet of our lives. General Higer is one of the only wing commanders whose tour has spanned both the kickoff of the pandemic and also the resolution of the pandemic. And when you combine that with the challenges of a no-fail mission that the 412 Test Wing performs, it truly was a challenging assignment. And that includes running the Air Force's second largest installation and a critical production facility down at Palmdale. But to no surprise, Matt and the 412 Test Wing team delivered spectacular results. So I want to highlight some of their brief accomplishments. So first of all, despite the challenges of the pandemic, which we'll cover towards the end of this, they deliver new capabilities across the entire Air Force fleet, whether it's the F-22, the F-35, B-52 modernization, the KC-46, hypersonics weapons testing, artificial intelligence, our Orange Flag large force test events, and graduating over 170 test pilot school grads, just to name a few. The wing continued to execute the mission. Matt was also focused on improving the infrastructure across our sites, including rebuilding the crumbling schools here on base, the new Joint Simulation Environment Facility, FAM camp expansion, a solar project, a new test engineering lab, and ensure the B-21 Combined Test Force compound and the T-7 test teams are ready to go for aircraft that will be arriving here in the near future. In 2020, the 412 Test Wing brought to the nation an innovative air show, a hybrid event that featured STEM outreach and a parade of aircraft flying over local communities and hospitals. And in 2022, they followed this with the first open house at Edwards Air Force Base in more than 13 years. Over 100,000 people from our community came out to see what was happening in aviation, but also were treated to a plethora of science, technology, engineering, and math activities as we continue to recruit the talent that our nation will need to excel in the future. But Matt was also focused on people during his time. He stood up the Humanitarian Assistance Team to help support families and team members dealing with the loss and grief, and this program has since been benchmarked at other Air Force bases around our country. The team also supported multiple classified efforts, while we don't talk about today, will be fielded in the future, and will have the fingerprints of Team Edwards on them as well as they advance the capabilities of the warfighter. Despite all this, during the pandemic, this was not a mission here on base that they could dial into remote to go do. We still had to secure an installation. We still had to provide medical support to all the members of Team Edwards. We had aircraft to launch, aircraft to maintain, control rooms to man, and step briefs to go. And the mission, 48 hours after the pandemic kicked off, the team was able to launch missions and continue the test mission here at Edwards Air Force Base. So as some of you might be aware, Matt also did this while dealing with a life-threatening health issue. He was a tireless advocate for increasing health care support to members of his Team Edwards, and he also credits the care he received with himself here in the Antelope Valley with saving his life. Through all this, Matt has maintained his forward-thinking mindset, his vision for making Edwards Air Force Base an even better place, and set an ambitious goal to make 93523 the best zip code in the Air Force. Matt, as you step away from command and prepare for the next chapter, I know you'll remember the 412th in the Antelope Valley, or as you like to call it, the Aerospace Valley, with a special fondness. However, we all know this job was a team sport, and your family's support was critical to your success. We are not just sending off Matt, we're sending off the entire Higer family, since they were a large part of his success. So despite being geographically separated for a significant portion of the assignment, Leslie was active in supporting families. She hosted linking leadership events to connect key spouses, command teams, first sergeants, and various helping agencies to ensure our airmen received the support they needed. Alex and Zev also made the frequent trips back and forth between Las Vegas and here and still managed to thrive in school and extracurricular activities. Team Higer, thank you for everything you have done as a family to support the men and women serving here. Matt, congratulations on an amazing command tour. Your Air Force journey started just south of here at the University of Southern California, and it's only fitting that your final assignment will be here at Edwards Air Force Base back in Southern California. Erica and I wish you and your family all the best in your future endeavors, and I know you will continue to do great things for our nation. Take some time to relax, and we are excited to see what's next for you after your retirement later this year. Congratulations on a job well done. So it always amazes me that we have such extraordinary leaders ready to step up when another leader moves on, and today is no different. Luckily, we have the perfect team to lead the 412th Test Wing. It is my pleasure to introduce the Wickerts. Colonel Doug Beaker Wickert, his spouse Jody, and children Charlotte, Cole, and Cora. The Wickert family joins us from the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, where Beaker was the head of the Aeronautics Department. Doug is a distinguished graduate of the United States Air Force Academy with dual degrees in aeronautical engineering and math. He earned his master's degree at MIT and also earned a PhD in aeronautical engineering. He is a decorated F-16 combat pilot, has been a distinguished graduate of 5 different programs, including Navy Test Pilot School, and he was a squadron commander supporting the development of a classified prototype aircraft. Most recently, as the head of the Aeronautics Department, he led a curriculum overhaul and drove the Air Force Academy to earn the nation's #1 ranking for undergraduate aeronautical engineering program. Colonel Wickert also earned the Higer Award as the #1 professor as voted on by the graduating class of cadets. And when not engaged in all his academic activities, for some reason he enjoys running ultra marathons, which are 100-plus mile events. So I have no idea. You'll have to explain that to me one time. But good on you. So while Beaker is a member of the Air Force, we all know it's the entire family that serves. Behind Beaker's success has been Jody's constant support, sacrifice. Doug and Jody met in geometry class in 9th grade, and they've been a dynamic team since then across their 25-year career. Jody has worked as both an accountant and as a teacher and provided amazing support. They have also raised 3 wonderful children. Unfortunately, Charlotte can't be here today. She's joining us virtually from Peru, but she just graduated from MIT with a degree in physics and nuclear engineering and a minor in music. She's staying there for another year to complete her master's degree, and then she will commission in the Air Force as a 2nd lieutenant. Cole, who is here with us today, starts MIT next Tuesday and pursuing a degree in mechanical engineering. And Cora is completing her senior year in high school right now, and she had a chance to visit UCLA down in LA as she starts her college search. So I see the little rivalry here between UCLA and UCLA. But congratulations to all of you. Eric and I are excited to have the Wickert family back as part of the Air Force Test Center family, and we know you're the perfect team to lead the 412th Test Wing going forward. Beaker, congratulations. Command of a military unit is one of the greatest privileges our nation can entrust to an officer. It demands integrity, leadership, and sacrifice. I have full confidence that you are ready for the challenge, and you have an amazing team of professionals excited to continue executing this no-fail mission under your leadership. Congrats. Finally, to the men and women of the 412 Test Wing, thank you for your tireless efforts to operate and maintain 2 critical installations, deliver new capabilities to the warfighter while taking care of each other. Our nation is depending on you to deliver the future. Well done. All right, for next, we're going to present General Higer with the Humanitarian Service Medal that will highlight some of the accomplishments and some of the efforts he did to keep the Edwards mission running and keep this as one of the few green spots on the map when you looked at the outbreak of the pandemic in Southern California and the impact it had on that. So back over to you.
Thank you, General Durteen. Team Takata 2. General Durteen will now present the Humanitarian Service Medal to Brigadier General Higer. Please stand. Citation to accompany the award of the Humanitarian Service Medal to Matthew W. Higer. Brigadier General Matthew W. Higer distinguished himself in performance of outstanding service to the United States as Commander, 412th Test Wing, Air Force Test Center, Air Force Material Command, Edwards Air Force Base, California, from 29 February 2020 to 11 May 2023. During the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic, General Higer stepped outside his lanes of expertise into the de facto role of Senior Public Health Officer at 2 Department of the Air Force installations. He personally crafted, implemented via counter-COVID directive, and maintained the public health campaign of Know the Threat, Respect the Threat, and Beat the Threat. This specific public health action drove resonance across the medical and command teams, successfully implementing these public health measures against the spread of the virus to keep Edwards Air Force Base a green dot in a sea of red, as the initial Delta and Omicron surges ravaged the rest of Southern California. In early 2021, General Higer initiated and then executed Operation Max Vax, a local medical campaign plan to accelerate COVID vaccination among the community, setting the pace for all medium and large installations in Air Force Material Command. Additionally, he orchestrated the stand-up of and personally tested the procedures for the Edwards Air Force Base single-point screening test facility, resulting in the detection of 21 pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic COVID infections. Finally, General Higer promulgated his exceptional and recursive layman's self-taught epidemiological, public health, and immunology knowledge via 104 virtual and in-person town hall events focused on saving the lives and livelihoods of thousands of community members. The distinctive accomplishments of General Higer reflect credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Team Takata 2, please be seated. Brigadier General Higer, the floor is yours, sir.
Exactly 1,290 days ago, in this hangar, on this stage, from this podium, I challenged you, all of you hearing my voice, I challenged you, ladies and gentlemen, Americans all, to compete. I challenge you to compete for our nation and our allies, to compete against all the elements of national power. And on many occasions during those last 1,290 days, I've asked you a simple question. How can 0.4 billion Americans compete with 1.4 billion humans under the control of the Chinese Communist Party? I assert the answer is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. You, we, all of us, must max perform across our American competitive advantages 24/7, 365. These vital competitive advantages are grounded in the fundamentals of our Constitution, and they continue to serve us extremely well as we compete in every combat front and in all warfighting domains. Our American competitive advantages are numerous and they're dynamic. Those competitive advantages include liberty, freedom of religion, self-determination, freedom of speech, the right to vote, the recognition of basic human rights, academic freedom, the rule of law, diversity of thought, an innovative spirit, and the relentless thirst to leave it better than you found it. But I assert that our maximum competitive advantage are Americans themselves. You, us, the people. That's right, us as individuals and as teams are the supreme American competitive advantage. And wow, have I been blessed with amazing people in the 412 senior leadership ranks the last 1,290 days, including 3 vice wing commanders, 3 command chiefs, 2 test engineering group directors, 3 TPS commandants, 2 TMG directors, 3 med group commanders, 3 ops group commanders, 3 maintenance group commanders, 2 directors of operating location Plant 42, 3 electronic warfare group commanders, 2 CE group commanders, 3 mission support group commanders, and of course the anchors of our senior leadership team here at Takata 2, the entire duration of my command tour, 1 IMA and 1 senior technical director. Kit, Dano, Archie, Stoltz, you are impressive and you inspire me. I am honored to be a member of this top 5 team of servant and selfless senior leaders here at the center of the aerospace testing universe with you, if only for just a few more minutes. I'm also honored to have served with the other commanders, directors, chiefs, and senior enlisted leaders across the enterprise. For those of you that are here, that were able to break away from your mission to honor us with your presence, thank you for being here this morning. Dr. Bjorkman, Missile, Chief Weiser, I was watching virtually, John G., Dr. Federhoff, your presence here today is greatly appreciated, as is that of my next-door neighbor extraordinaire, Erica. It's great to see you in the audience. Admiral Hash, thank you so much for making it. Major General Durteen, thank you for the trust and confidence you've had in me these past 2 years. Please pass on my deepest and continuing appreciation of that same trust and confidence to Major General Lozano, Lieutenant General Schaefer, General Bunch, and General Richardson as well. I can tell you firsthand that being trusted and supported from above in the chain of command has been a critical component in all of the accomplishments the 412 Test Wing has completed the last 1,290 days. And while I'm thinking about people and thanking them, please join me in a rousing chorus. You ready? A rousing chorus of applause for all of the teams that made the event this morning a reality. So get clapping. The planning team, led by Lieutenant Kinley and Senior Master Sergeant Haynes. The Blue Eagles Honor Guard. Our narrator, Sergeant Day. The facilities team, our Proper Airman Stanley. The Rockstar Audio Visual team. Team Protocol, the DV Escort team, our first responders. The setup team, the aid shop who returned those bleachers to FMC status. Our chaplain, Colonel Select Broadwell. The teardown team, the reception team, and the Fab 5 wing execs. And lastly, and I know you agree with me, our national anthem vocalist, Miss Rachel Bradshaw, whose inspirational rendition of our national anthem is itself an American competitive advantage. Another American competitive advantage is our belief in partnerships, teams of teams. Here at Takata 2, these rockstar teams include the Edwards Air Force Base CivMil Support Group, our mission partners here on Edwards and at Air Force Plant 42, our CLPs, the DAF Kick organization, our honorary commanders at all levels, our key spouses, and all of our local, state, and federal elected officials. Congressman Garcia, thank you for being here. Your partnership with and support of the women and men that serve at Air Force Plant 42 and here at Edwards Air Force Base has been both highly effective and deeply appreciated. The American competitive advantage of partnerships and friendly strife competition is alive and well in the forum known as X-Wing. Yes, fellow geeks, the Star Wars reference christened by Pipper Bradley lives on. So Jive, Kelvin, pass it on to Laz, Logger, and yes, Missile, and pass it on to Rave 2. It's phenomenal to see those of you here today at the center of the aerospace testing universe. It's been fantastic to observe the vector change driven by the X-Wing members as we accelerate test while paying proper homage to May the 4th. Reverence is also a solemn American competitive advantage. And so is true wingmanship to a teammate grieving. Like those of us that knew, loved, and dearly missed the 57 members of the extended Team Takata 2, ages 16 months to 90 years, that are no longer with us. Please, reverently, join me in a moment of reflective silence as we remember each and every dear friend, teammate, or loved one that we've lost the last 1,290 days. And I know that if you, like me, are still grieving the loss of a loved one, there are countless teammates around you as you heal and grow to reflect with joy on the blessings of having known those that cannot be here physically today. Spiritual care teams are another competitive advantage, and I'd specifically and publicly like to thank Chaplain Captain Jay Clark for being my personal spiritual wingman the last 1,290 days. Another competitive advantage is resilience, and knowing that there are countless allies in our lives that will help us after that failure, after that heartbreak, that diagnosis, that loss, or that stumble. These allies include exceptional medical professionals on my medical care team. Kathy, Dr. Ellis, Captain Fan, thank you for helping me heal physically and mentally. Dr. Bacaldo, and please pass it on to Major S., Dr. Petrick, and especially Dr. Wittig. I'm so glad you are here today. It's important that you four know how much my family and I deeply appreciate the respect and care for me you have provided the last 15 months. Great humans like you, that are also great Americans who uphold the Hippocratic Oath, are at the cornerstone of another American competitive advantage: access to the best health care the world has ever known. And speaking of my family, Barbara, Dad, Kay, Dave, it means the world to me that you're here for this momentous event. To my family and friends attending virtually from Illinois, Indiana, Florida, Alaska, and elsewhere, thank you for sharing your time with us this morning. Alex and Zev and Alex, I love you both so much. I'm so proud of you two and grateful beyond words to you for the sacrifices you've endured while I answered this call of duty. Your patience and understanding is both impressive and humbling. Leslie, the love, the advice, the counsel, and the candor you've given and continue to provide me remains my personal and professional bedrock. I absolutely would not be here today, professionally or physically, without you. I remain eternally grateful you are my closest friend and teammate, and I love you beyond words. Lastly, I've been asked the last few weeks, and especially the last few days, including on the walk into the building today, how do you feel? Candidly, I have a distinct craving for a nap. But I certainly don't feel sad, maybe a little somber, but I feel a lot proud. For here on this stage, in this hangar, at the center of the aerospace testing universe, you will all witness today yet another uniquely American competitive advantage: the peaceful transition of power. Beaker, as we've discussed many times to include yesterday, for reasons that I will not take the time to explain, it's so absolutely amazing, maybe even with a dash of miraculous or divine intervention thrown in for good measure, that, and this is no joke, folks, the remaining two officers on active duty today that were on the 2018 Test Wing Commander candidate list will both hold the title at some point today of Commander 412 Test Wing. There is no other person I would rather see following my footsteps here at Takata 2 than you, brother. So, Beaker, to you and your family, on behalf of the nation, thank you for your unbelievable sacrifices before minute one of your command. Thank you for being here on stage with us today, and accept that beautiful guidon that Chief is holding so proudly. I know you're going to crush it as this Takata 2 team and this Aerospace Valley community and this T&E tribe continue to compete.
Thank you, General Higer. General Higer will now receive his final salute as the commander, 412th Test Wing. General Durteen, Colonel Wickert, please join General Higer at center stage. Team Takata 2, we will now proceed with the 412th Test Wing change of command ceremony. Please stand. Attention to orders. Department of the Air Force, Headquarters, United States Air Force, Washington, D.C. Special Order Number Golf Oscar 23-18, dated 18 July 2023. Under the provisions of Air Force Instruction 51-604, by order of Major General Evan C. Durteen, Commander, Air Force Test Center, Brigadier General Matthew W. Higer relinquishes command, and Colonel Douglas P. Wickert assumes command as Commander, 412th Test Wing, effective 18 August 2023. Teammates, you may be seated. By tradition, the 412th Test Wing flagship bears the name of the 412th Test Wing Commander. Please direct your attention to the F-35 parked to your left, where Senior Airman Juan LaChapelle will now reveal the name of the new 412th Test Wing Commander. Colonel Wickert will now receive his first salute as Commander, 412th Test Wing. Team Takata 2, the Commander, 412th Test Wing, Colonel Douglas P. Wickert.
Wow. Wow. What a beautiful and inspiring venue. That national anthem, wow. Wow. General Durteen and General Higer have already hit a lot of the thank yous, so I will only add how much all of this means to Jody and I. The welcome from across Team Takata 2 this past week has simply been incredible. I know these things just don't happen, so a very sincere thank you again to just an all-around class act. Congressman Garcia, and all the state and local leaders that are here, thank you for being here, showing your continued support for Edwards. Your presence really does say and mean a lot to the greater Edwards community. General Durteen, thank you for the very generous words, but more importantly and significantly, thank you for the trust and confidence. I've always looked up to your leadership example. It was an honor to serve with you before, and I look forward to leading the 412th Test Wing into the future. General Higer, you're one of my oldest friends and colleagues in the Air Force, and I know how much you genuinely care about the Air Force and our airmen. You've given a lot of yourself over the years. The Air Force is far better for it, and we're fortunate that you've been so generous. 1,290 days, Leslie, I know somebody's been counting. You've also served and sacrificed in so many ways. Alex, Zev, thank you for sharing your dad with the Air Force. We needed him, and we thank you for that. Jody, nothing can be infinite in a finite universe. The closest thing that I know to infinity is your capacity for love, support, and patience, particularly as the Air Force continues to ask more of our family. Thank you for being an amazing wife and mother. Charlotte, Cole, Cora, I want to say in this forum how much we love you and how proud we are of the adults that you've grown up to be. To the men and women of the 412th Test Wing, I am incredibly excited to serve as your commander. And normally an incoming commander doesn't issue orders in their change of command speech, but in the spirit of expressing gratitude, I'm going to ask your indulgence and make an exception here. I'd like each of you to go home this evening and tell your spouse, partner, children, parents, whomever it is that is important in your life, tell them thank you. Thank you for supporting your service to this nation. Serving in the Air Force is not the easiest lifestyle. So please go home and thank those who make it possible for you to do your job here. And your job here at Edwards Air Force Base hasn't really changed in the 90 years since, as General Durteen mentioned, then Lieutenant Colonel Hap Arnold established an outpost on the world's largest lake bed. And for the last 90 years, the men and women of what eventually became known as Edwards Air Force Base have been creating the future Air Force. Our first jet took off from the lake bed behind this beautiful American flag. Less than a month after the Air Force was created, we broke the sound barrier right here. And then Mach 2, and then Mach 3.2, Mach 6.7. The development of every generation of fighter happened right here, including 4th gen, 5th gen, and now 6th gen with NGAD and CCA. Every generation of bombers since World War II, to include at some point in the not too distant future, the B-21. You are also currently upgrading our oldest weapon system, the B-52, with new engines and a new radar, a new trainer in the T-7, a new tanker in the KC-46, new ISR platforms, new autonomous systems flown by AI, hypersonics, as well as developing the science and test techniques that we'll need for 21st century T&E at the world's foremost institute for test education, the Test Pilot School. Simply put, you are building the future Air Force and Space Force here at Edwards. It is easy to see why Edwards became known as the center of the aerospace testing universe. When we reach the 100th anniversary of operations at Edwards in 2033, the 21st century Air Force that we have will be the one that you are right now developing and testing right here. And this is why that is important. We are almost certainly in an interregnum, a period between great wars. The Chinese Communist Party is actively chafing against the international world order that has existed since World War II. The PRC is aggressively developing a large and increasingly sophisticated military that threatens the rule of law in 80 years of post-war global peace and prosperity. So if we're in an interwar period, what are we going to do? A war between U.S. and China, no doubt about it, would be devastating, potentially civilization ending. And the best hope that we have to avoid catastrophic war is to be so overwhelmingly powerful that China decides it is not worth a war. The Air Force that we would go to war with in 2033 is the one that you are building right here, right now. You are building the future of the Air Force so that our sons and daughters don't have to fight. It will be an honor to serve with you and serve you. I see my primary job as supporting you because of what you are doing here is incredibly important. The 412th Test Command Team is going to take care of you and take care of your families so that you can take care of executing the mission. We are creating the Air Force of the 2030s here, and it needs to be so good that we never have to fight. Test is the way to the future, and we need that future now more than ever. Let's do it, teammates.
Thank you, Colonel Wickert. Colonel Wickert and Mrs. Wickert, the members of the 412th Test Wing welcome you. Teammates, please stand and join us in singing the Air Force song, followed by the departure of the official party. This concludes today's ceremony. Outdoor customs and courtesies are no longer in place. You are now invited to congratulate Colonel Wickert and Mrs. Wickert in the receiving line at your left, followed by a reception at the left side of the stage. We ask that you please remain in place until our distinguished visitors in the first 3 rows have departed and the Commander of Airmen has dismissed the formations. Thank you for attending and have a great Air Force Day.